For Indi.
Deputy Speaker, I'm very pleased to stand here today in the House and support Treasury Law's Amendment 2017 Measures No. 4, 2017 Wine Equalisation Tax, known as the wet rebate. And I'd like to acknowledge two of my particular colleagues in the House, my neighbours, the member for Farrer and the member for Riverina. Lovely to have you here. And in support of this legislation, I want to make three main points. I'd like to acknowledge the leadership shown by Senator Anne Ruston in this process. I'd like to acknowledge the role of the leaders in the wine industry, and particularly in my electorate, to the work they've done. I'd like to make the particular point how when government has strong process, we get good results. And just hearing the member for Perth's comment, what a unique experience— no, not unique— how often it is actually in parliament that we do come together in agreement around legislation. So I want to talk a little bit about process and how important it is for outcomes. The amendment to this Act will provide the integrity of the wine equalisation tax producer rebate, which we've heard about, and there's many, many advantages in it. And like the previous speaker said, the wine industry in my electorate is really important. It's important as an agricultural, tourism and regional development success story. In my electorate of Indi, viticulture and tourism are two of the biggest industries. Of the 21 official wine regions found in Victoria, 6 of them in north-east Victoria. And in addition to producing high-quality wine, they provide high-quality vineyard dining and behind-the-scenes tours, cellar-door experiences. And together in regional Victoria, $13.3 billion in revenue, 13,000 direct jobs, and over 32,000 indirect jobs, mostly in the tourism sector. So as we've been talking about today, it's really important. And the wine industry has strong leadership. So I mentioned briefly Senator Anne Ruston. I'd like to acknowledge her staff con, to the leadership team in the departments, whom I know have played a really significant role in bringing this legislation to today. So can I acknowledge you and congratulate you. The process commenced in March 2015 with the Senate inquiry into the Australian wine industry. This inquiry looked at, among other things, the impact and application of the rebate on grape and wine industry supply chains. And the committee heard evidence from a large number of sources that the rebate was working against profitability in the industry and reform was needed. This was followed in May 2015 with the Treasury preparing a discussion paper examining the wet rebate. And the paper formed part of the tax white paper process. Do I like a white paper process? Can I say to the ministers at the table, give us a white paper on regional development. Give us a really thorough policy process development process. White paper's great. So following the wine industry's response to the 2016 budget, Ministers Anne Ruston and Kelly O'Dwyer then led a national consultation program with the wine industry that resulted in key changes to the eligibility criteria. Do I like a national consultation process? I have to say yes. Give us a white paper, give us a national consultation paper led by the two relevant ministers and involve industry. It was really well done. And the result was a clear demonstration of how vigorous process and a clear framework gave us genuine engagement. Genuine engagement. Industry got behind this in a big way. Local leaders became involved in the conversation. They became involved in politics. They became involved in parliament. And particularly in this instance, I want to acknowledge the leadership in my own electorate. A huge call out to Colin Campbell as a board member of Wine Federation Australia, and to Belinda Chambers as chair of the Rutherglen Winemakers. In the initial days, you called me to a meeting, you sat me down as a new member of parliament and explained how it worked for the industry. So they worked at the local level, not only to bring me into the debate, but to bring the industry together to discuss key issues, identified mechanisms required to address barriers. So we worked bottom up, middle up and then top down. And I'd also like to acknowledge the work of Janelle Boynton in her role as, at that time, Chair of Regional Development Australia, and a huge call out to the Minister. Regional Development Australia, a terrific institution, really needs all the support it can get. So Janelle was the chair at the time. She brought her experience of the wine industry and her links with tourism and her commitment to regional development. and she came to my office as part of our volunteer program, spent a week here in Parliament and advocated really strongly across political lines for this legislation to be considered as part of broader challenges facing the industry. And she did a mountain of work. So thank you, Janelle, for your time. And I have to say, during all this time, industry people worked freely. They were not paid. They gave of their time, numerous meetings, numerous trips to Canberra, covering all their own costs. And for that contribution that leaders in rural and regional Australia make out of their own pocket to work the politics of the country, I just think we can never say thank you enough. And I particularly want to now name some of the leaders, again in my electorate, who wrote to me, they organised meetings, they provided input into the debate, they came and visited me all over the place, and they got their committees together. So, at the risk of leaving some important people out, Michael Freudenstein from Alpine Valleys, Simon Grant from Beechworth, Michael and Nancy Reid from Glenrowan, John Darling from the King Valley, John Adams from Mansfield, and Belinda and Michael Chamberlain from Rutherglen, for your work, for your time, your dedication. Thank you. And the benefit of a process like this is twofold. It allows for rigorous discussion on the issues, but it also provided an opportunity to identify other issues that needed to be picked up by the industry. And in this case, the other issue was picked up for us, particularly for me as a border member of Parliament, and if I could just bring this to attention to my colleague, the member for Farrer, we have a particular issue on our border that came up as part of this inquiry and the meeting with all the wine industry regarding the mutual recognition of the accreditation for people to work in the wine industry around the responsible serving of alcohol, the RSA certificate. And for the benefit of the Parliament, if you work in Victoria, you've got to get an RSA in Victoria. If you work selling wine in New South Wales, you need an RSA in New South Wales and a separate one for Canberra and around the country. So the high cost to the industry of getting all the staff with the respective RSA and the duplication and the red tape came up during this process. And I've long advocated for a nationally recognised RSA certification. But I'm fearing that in the many years that we've come through this process, getting harmony between New South Wales and Victoria, well, let's see if we can just get Victoria and New South Wales working together rather than the nation. And I've written to the Victorian Premier on this, and I'd be seeking the support of my colleagues in New South Wales, if I could, members for Riverina and Farrer, to work together with me on this cross-border anomaly and how we can get one harmonisation of certificates between Victoria and New South Wales so that our industry workers do not get disadvantaged by the over-duplication of this particular area. So just a call out to the industry to see how we could continue to work together on this one. So in closing my comments, what I would like to do is say how much I have appreciated this particular process. Not only, as the member for Perth said, it's resulted in savings, but it's done something that the community of Australia is constantly asking us to do, to have good governance, to have good, clear process, to work with industry to get a result, to work with our communities. And I think in this particular legislation we've done it. And I'd like to acknowledge the Minister at the table, and Kelly, can I thank you for your role in it, because I know you together with Anne have worked superbly well on it and we've really appreciated it. So the process has been good. The collaboration has been good. The leadership has been strong and consistent, and the outcomes we've got as a result of it. And I'd just like to make a final call, if I could, to the members on the government side. We really do know how to do this. We're good at it, but we don't do it nearly enough. And my particular call is in the area of regional development. This ability for leadership, this ability to consult, to have good governance processes, so that in the bigger areas that we're now looking at can actually come to the Parliament and we have clear agreement across the Parliament about how we need to work together. Now, I'm currently involved in an inquiry which is headed by the member for Groom, and we're looking at regional development and how it works. And if I could use the opportunity just briefly to call on my colleagues in the Parliament to get behind this inquiry, because if we can actually learn the lessons from this wet rebate and bring it to regional development, bring small business together with industry together, with Parliament together, with the Treasury together, with the public service together, and actually look at what is the grand picture, if I could dare be bold enough to say, and then have a white paper process and have the consultation process, and then bring in a long-term, more than 3 years, for how we actually want rural and regional Australia to work, I think we could do some good work. But in bringing my comments to a close, congratulations to all concerned, particularly for my electorate, because I know they did a huge amount of work, and I know that other wine-growing areas clearly did their heavy lifting as well. But particularly to the ministers at the table, congratulations, well done, and I'm absolutely delighted to support this legislation.